Technology has changed the way we live our lives, from how we consume information, connect with our friends, and even how we work. Today in the roll call room, I'm joined by Detective Wayne Jones. He's our digital forensics expert and one of our tactical technology operators. Today we'll talk about some of those changes and how we're implementing technology here at the Mount Vernon Police Department. Wayne, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So most of our detectives here at the police department are generalists, meaning they investigate a little bit of everything. Your position in particular has a little more to it than just general duties. Talk a little bit about what your position is here in the detective unit.
So part of my duties, beyond just the generalist tasks, are dealing with digital forensics. So digital devices, cell phones, computers, hard drives, DVRs, anything with digital data inside it. I'll utilize that to advance our cases and have received a plethora of classes and training hours in digital forensics.
That was a long list of things you said that you use, and you mentioned training. Talk a little bit about the training you have to go to become an expert.
Some of the training that I've been fortunate enough to have gone through is IASIS, and that's one of the top level certificates in digital forensics.
What's IASIS stand for?
International Association of Computer Science. I screwed that one up.
Fancy?
Yeah.
That's okay.
IASIS is one of the times that we're able to, or I've gone through training in that. That's a 2-week training course, followed by 3 months of practicals.
It's a lot.
Yep, and each one of those problem sets in those practicals is very lengthy. We have a coach that we go with and help continue the flow of information and how that works and what information we're finding. So it's like a test throughout the whole process. And at the completion of the practicals is actually a written test that we have to pass, which is pretty lengthy in itself.
And you did?
And I did.
Nice.
So I am certified. I did that 3 years ago. I'm actually up for recertification this year.
Okay. A 3-month process. That's a lot. And so we don't really have that technology and training ability here locally, do we?
No, a lot of the courses that I've been able to go through have been with the Secret Service. They have a training facility down in Hoover, Alabama, and that's the NCFI, National Computer Forensics Institute. Okay. They built a facility down there, and the federal government pays for state and local officers and to go to the training down there. They've got some of the best training, and it's free. All the city has to pay for is my time.
Okay. And so you come back with a lot of knowledge. They get any equipment you get out of that deal too, or? Yeah.
Yep, we're pretty fortunate that they do provide equipment. So again, been through probably almost a dozen classes down there. One of the longest ones that they have is BCERT, and that's a basic computer evidence recovery training. That's a mouthful in itself.
It is.
So it's a 5-week course, and that goes over computer forensics. And at the completion of that training, I came back to the department with a forensic tower. So
which means?
That's a forensic workstation, a computer that's purpose-built to handle large data sets, large amounts of computer information, okay, and be able to process that information. And we also came back with other equipment from there, so software licensing, which can be very expensive. We pay probably about 20 grand a year in software licenses, and that helps us process the information into a human readable format and to build reports. It's not an easy button because we have to be able to validate the information that we're seeing, but it does help us get to the final process, the final product a little bit easier.
So it's not just like anybody can go in and push the button and say go, and it spits out all that information. You've got to have that extra knowledge base to be able to really do it.
Yep, you've got to know where that information is actually stored at, be able to validate that information and understand what you're looking at. A lot of times when I talk about what I do and how I do it, people kind of zone out because it is pretty labor intensive and it is difficult to understand for individuals that don't often do it. But that's something that I when I testify about, I have to be able to relate back to the jury in a manner that they're going to be able to understand. And talking about SQLite databases, that's a very in-depth process to discuss, but I relate that back to an Excel spreadsheet. Everybody's using an Excel spreadsheet, and so they know what that looks like, and I can relate that back to a SQLite database and all of the pages that can be in a Excel spreadsheet. So being able to have that knowledge base and relate back to the jury and all the information that we're looking at makes me, digital examiner, proficient in what I do.
Got it. So there's probably not very often anymore cases that you get, especially in detectives, some of the more complex cases, that doesn't involve some sort of technology. It's safe to say? We all live our lives on our cell phones, so I'm guessing there's a lot.
Yeah, almost every case has some sort of digital footprint in it. And then the absence of a digital footprint is also evidence in itself, because almost every person has at least one cell phone. I've got two. I'm sure you have two as well.
I do, unfortunately.
Some of our officers in other positions have 3 cell phones. And to not have that cell phone for a given period of time would be odd. Mm-hmm. So that lack of digital evidence is potentially evidence as well, and something that we would look at. People driving around in cars, those now have infotainment systems that have information built in there that we could look at. So yeah, there's an opportunity for digital evidence almost in every case.
We talked a little bit earlier about the Idaho murders, and there was some of that related to that case, right?
Yeah, Koberger, I haven't seen the full debrief on his case yet. Really looking forward to that opportunity. But from what I have read is that his phone had turned off for periods of time, which was inconsistent with his normal behavior. Mm-hmm. So that lack of evidence was something that the investigators looked in to try to answer those questions of why is that phone off and where was it. So that was interesting and would be definitely something that if we had a similar type case, we would look at.
So actually the lack of information is actually evidence in itself sometimes.
Yeah, it could be. And you have to flush that out, and you have to find information about that. As an investigator, we are looking for evidence of a crime and evidence of exonerating somebody potentially.
Because we investigate situations, and sometimes we get investigations where we actually rule people out of being the suspect. And so some of the digital footprint could go towards that too.
Yep.
Okay. You mentioned cars. Talk a little bit more about what data we can get on cars and maybe whether you've used it on some of our local cases.
Yeah, so the modern vehicle has multiple different computer systems built in. Each one does different things and can potentially have different information inside. Vehicle crashes is one area that there could be data. So if a car gets into a collision that causes enough damage, that could get recorded by the crash data recovery. And so that information could be beneficial to the investigation. They have internet connectivity, so there's potential data that could be beneficial to investigation. Been fortunate to work on some of the cases with other jurisdictions with infotainment systems and see the breadcrumbs, the track logs, where that vehicle has gone during an investigation. And that's pretty helpful for an investigation to know where it's been, to pinpoint potentially if that was at the incident itself. Maybe there's stolen property, related to investigation. That could also track back to that with that location information.
So almost like a Find My iPhone or a Life 360 type thing, but the car itself.
Yep, and so that information's there. There could be call logs. Phones can connect to the vehicles themselves, and there could be call log information. There's been information about the doors opening and closing, seat belt. So again, each car has more and more computers built in them. Tesla, obviously, is a very technology advanced vehicle with its self-driving, but it also has cameras throughout the exterior as well as the interior, and that information is recorded. And I've known other investigators that have been able to get that information, those recordings.
And that's actually recording even when it's not turned on in motion.
Yep.
We featured a case on our monthly update a while back where somebody came out from working and saw a big footprint on the hood of his car. So he was able to just pull up his cameras on his car, and it showed a couple guys walking through the alley, go and jump right on top of his car. He wasn't in it, just sitting there all by himself, but it was recording all the time around it.
Yeah, and that's pretty helpful in investigations.
Also worked a case, and I'm imagining you've worked something similar, where a semi-truck is basically cameraed all the way around it. So it got in a crash, and the driver was able to pull it up like right on scene and show us what happened right there, where in the past we just have to rely on statements.
Yeah, we took a collision on the west side of Mount Vernon. It was very early in the morning. It was dark hours. Semi-truck unfortunately collided with someone. But yeah, they had that vehicle information. The video showed the driver what he was doing, and that was helpful to rule him out as being distracted or being under the influence.
Okay. So in that case, kind of ruled him out of any sort of criminal behavior or intent.
Yep.
Nice. You mentioned earlier you're a tactical technology operator. What does that mean?
Another mouthful of a title for me, but for that attached to our tactical team and our negotiators to provide technical assistance with drones, with robots, but to have expertise in areas that will help them complete their mission.
Okay. And we've got a couple of those sitting here. We got one that's kind of bigger and one that's smaller. Like this small guy here, what would you use this one for?
So this one is for interior type missions, as well as we can fly it outside as well. But this one can go inside residents. We have some lights on the side that we can illuminate our area. We can let people know that we are the police. It'll turn red and blue as well and function just to give notification to anybody that, hey, this is actually the police.
Okay.
For some reason, maybe they didn't hear our announcements because we're not trying to sneak up on people. When you're utilizing our tactical team or our drones, we want people to know it's us. We want them to be able to come out and respond to our and comply with us.
Sure.
So this can go inside. I've utilized this one just to clear residents. So in Washington State, we have a lot of de-escalation going on in our training. And so time, distance, and shielding.
Okay.
So this is an opportunity for us to create time. We can fly our drone inside and scout out the residents, the property, to see if there's anybody inside. Okay. And then we can relay that information back to the tactical team. So before they go inside, they have a better understanding of what the home looks like. And if there's anybody inside, hopefully we can identify where they are and let them know that. And then that also plays into, if we do find somebody inside, now maybe we change the overall approach. Maybe we're not going to go inside as quickly, give more time for negotiations to occur. Maybe they're asleep. For whatever reason that they're not responding to our commands, give them that opportunity to comply with us.
Sure.
Ultimately, that's the goal, is to have everybody be safe, ourselves, bystanders, or any potential suspects.
Right. Yeah, get that voluntary surrender in those high-risk incidents.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned going in and kind of gives the team a layout of the house, because if they've never been there before, then they're just kind of going in blind and just looking at the house trying to guess, okay, that's probably a bedroom, there's probably a hallway. But this gives you the opportunity to go in there and actually have the team or the team leader see what it looks like, so they know if they do have to go in, I'm going to walk in the front door and there's going to be stairs directly to my right, or down the hallway there's going to be doors here and here.
Yeah, so this one we fly with first-person view. So I wear goggles, and I'll be sitting typically next to the team leader, and I'll be describing the inside of the residence. I was on the tactical team for about 10 years, so I've got that experience. I know what they're going to do. I've had the same training, so being able to relay to them what I'm seeing. Our other drone here, this is also an interior. This we can actually have a remote control that has video screen, and we can actually send that information to a cell phone or a computer, so our team leaders can actually watch as the drone is flying through the house to get that first observation of the residents, versus me describing what I'm seeing.
As I understand it too, these have the opportunity to, there's some communication functionality with some of these too, right?
Yeah, so this one has a built-in cell phone, so we can fly this into a residence or onto a vehicle or somewhere where we're trying to negotiate with somebody and call into it. And it's just like a cell phone, it just flies, and we can communicate with anybody through that. It's pretty good. It's got other commands so we can make it louder, but providing that opportunity for negotiations and communications with anybody that we're dealing with.
So you could basically fly it into a house and land it on a kitchen table, and then it's just back and forth communication, just like a cell phone would be with whoever's in there.
Yep.
Nice. You ever crashed it?
Unfortunately, I have crashed this one. I was assisting the Skagit County Sheriff's Office on a mission, and I was coming back to change out batteries because obviously it's battery powered, and the drone said I had about 10% battery life, but that 10% went real quick. And I was about 5 to 10 feet away from where I was going to land, and I had to ask for assistance from the tactical team to go pick up my drone and bring it back to me.
They make fun of you a little bit for that?
Just a tad bit.
We're always very supportive of each other.
Yep. But we changed the battery out and flew back in, and in that scenario, we were able to clear where the subject wasn't. And this actually has thermal, so we can check for heat signatures inside a house. And so we checked everywhere. Unfortunately, I didn't check up. It does have the ability to look up. I just hadn't looked there, but we had checked everywhere else, and we knew where the person was not.
Okay.
And so the team was able to go to the last place that they thought they could be, and they were up. They secured themselves in a crawl space.
Okay. It's got a couple other options it can use too. I mean, what happens if you get to somewhere and there's a window?
We do have a window brake attachment that we can put onto here, and it sticks out. I think it's a carbide blade, and it spins at a high revolution, and we can start punching holes through the window and ultimately carefully try to make a big enough hole that this can go through.
Sure.
The downside is that you don't want to suck any of that glass into the propellers and cause any damage.
Yeah. Sounds like that'd be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Other capabilities, can it deliver any sort of payload? It's kind of small, but are we able to do that?
Yep, we do have a payload attachment. So we've, in training, have been able to successfully deploy an inhaler for an incident. Again, it was a training incident, but we delivered an inhaler. We've delivered phone cords and battery chargers for a cell phone to keep up communications with negotiators and the individual inside. Sure. So about a pound is what we're at for this one, but at least we can get something inside. Sure. If we needed to. Okay.
I've read a little bit about some agencies are actually using drones as what they call a first responder. What is that?
So drone as a first responder is outdoor drones that fly to scenes, 911 response basically. So the fastest way to a single point is just a straight line, so a drone can go up in the air and get to an area a lot quicker than an officer could. Okay. And so this provides an opportunity for the officers that are responding to get a better understanding of what's going on. So if they're responding to a person with a gun call, they can actually get eyes on the area without actually having to physically be there to put themselves in potential danger or to create that danger with the person that they're responding to. Okay. And they could learn that maybe that isn't a person with a gun, it just somebody thought that's what they saw. Okay. So just getting a better understanding of what is going on.
Okay. So hypothetically, if we get a call of somebody throwing stuff in the road, if I hear you right, we can take the drone and go look to see if that's true or not, and that might change the way we respond.
Yeah, so that again, could potentially be an automated dispatch system where once that call goes in to our CAD system, the drone would deploy itself, and then
All by itself.
Yeah, it would deploy itself automatically, and then the operator could then start. The pilot could start maneuvering it to a specific area. You can get it to fly to that area automatically as well. But yeah, start looking around and seeing what's going on, and again, get that full understanding of what's going on without having to actually be there physically.
Yeah, and like I said, because maybe it's just something innocuous that somebody thought they saw, and if we can get eyes on there early, maybe we don't have to drive the lights and siren and put people in danger because we can clear it just with a drone.
Yeah, same thing with vehicle crashes. We could get on scene and know if it's an actual blocking MVA. Is it a accident where somebody's injured? Have that understanding. And at night, 5 o'clock around Mount Vernon, it can be pretty jam-packed on the roadways.
It sure can.
So not having to put an officer responding in a priority response to a scene or to a collision and is going to be helpful to the rest of the public, because unfortunately they don't always see our red and blue lights and respond the way we would want them to.
Yeah, you listen to your music real loud and you don't hear the siren coming up behind you. And
they panic, and so being able to use a drone to get eyes on increases safety for everybody involved.
We've talked a little bit about using these inside. Do we have some that work outside as well?
Yep. So we have two outdoor drones. One's a little bit larger. We'll use that for with our tactical team as well as with investigations. Tactical team usage, we'll observe an area. Say the team is on a mission and they're going to conduct a warrant at a residence. So we'll put the drone up into the air as they're on approach, let them know who is outside the residence, get an understanding of any vehicles. Again, just painting that picture for them so they have a good understanding of what's going on when they get there. And then we can be overwatch as they're at the residence. If anybody were to run, we could observe that and relay that information out to them. As far as investigation-wise, we'll utilize the drone for photography and mapping of areas to get the best picture and best diagram that we can of a scene.
Okay. So it'll actually fly over and do a diagram itself of what the scene is?
So it'll take photographs. The one that we have, we can set up a route, and we did this at an incident at the cemetery just up the road here at Hawthorne. We had an incident and we wanted to map out the area, so I set up a pattern for the drone to fly, and it took about 500 photographs.
Wow.
Looping back and forth. I then took that information and plugged it into a separate program and was able to make a 3D diagram. The drone has GPS, so it knows where it's at, and those photographs contain that information inside the photograph, so that can then be used in the mapping software to create that 3D diagram.
Nice. It's not like the old days where we take a big long tape measure and put it down on the street and then measure one way and measure the other way and say, well, this is where it was.
Yep, it's we've advanced quite a bit, and this paints that better picture than the old baseline.
Yeah. So we're able to better describe, if we do get to a jury, this is what it actually looked like.
Yeah, this is what it looked like at the time. Yeah. And that's been key in some of our other trials that we've had, being able to show that exactly what it looked like that night. Very important and very moving for the juries to see.
Any of the ones we have, there's no weapons or anything like that on them, right?
Nope, there's no weapons. The most dangerous thing would be the props on them, but other than that, and those are all covered up. But no weapons. These are just regular drones. Okay.
One of the other things you mentioned when it comes to tactical technology is a robot. Talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So we have a robot. It was actually made for the military. It's an iRobot. It's not a Roomba. It doesn't clean anything. But it was manufactured by iRobot many years ago for the military. It's an EOD robot, so it's one of their bomb disposal robots.
Got it.
Through the DERMO program, the surplus program with the military, state and local law enforcement can utilize that program to get almost anything. We utilize it for the robot, I've utilized for hard drives. So it's
Also,
they had hard drives in one of the military bases. They weren't using them. They were brand new. I think I got about 51 terabyte hard drives for free. I had to pay shipping
For nothing.
For nothing.
wow.
We've got night vision. We don't have any weapons from the military. We have a rescue vehicle that we were able to obtain through this DERMO program that transports our team. And we actually used it for the flood here just a few months ago in Burlington as a potential rescue vehicle.
Okay.
But the robot, again, it's a EOD robot. It's got an arm, it's got a camera, and we can drive around into residences or out into basically anywhere that you would want to go with something beyond yourself. We could drag the throw phones. The negotiators have communication capabilities that they would like to get certain places. We can utilize the robot for that.
You say it's got an arm, so is that like you can reach out and like grab things?
Yep, we can reach out, grab things. With practice, you can open up a door.
Okay.
It's got a little grabber, so you can open doors, you can grab items, and you can deliver those things as well. So the throw phone is in a box, and you can grab a hold of that and then move it from one location to the next.
So it's got the capability to carry more than what the drones would, sounds like.
Yeah, it's a few more pounds. I think it's probably less than 25, but probably about 15, maybe dragging.
Okay. And you've mentioned using them in tactical operations a few times. That's nice because if we can send those in ahead of people, then you don't potentially force an armed encounter. You can use these to go in and, like you said, scout, communicate back and forth with people and hopefully get that voluntary surrender. So and it's nice we get a robot like that for free.
Yep, and it's the value. We actually have two of them. The value is around 170 grand, I think, is what the original price is.
Wow.
But yeah, we have two of them, and we paid shipping from I think Ohio.
Okay.
So
not a bad deal.
not a bad deal, and it keeps us advancing our technology and our opportunity to keep everyone safe.
Sure. One of the other pieces of technology that's come over the last few years is body cameras. And they've been actually very beneficial. A lot of people were nervous about having a camera on all the time, but they've come in handy. And I would imagine for detectives and investigations, they do as well.
Yeah, getting that first, as an officer responds to a scene and what they're seeing on the video is very helpful. Memory is not 100%, and being able to have that camera footage of an incident, of a scene is pretty helpful. So yeah, it's definitely new. We've had it for a few years, but getting over that hurdle initially, but it's been a great tool in the long run.
Yeah, it's been really beneficial at the administrator level too. Being able to, during critical incidents, we can actually log on and view live what's going on. So I was a CNT, the crisis negotiation team leader for a long time. And I remember incidents we had where, say somebody's on a bridge and they're threatening to jump, and the negotiators are up forward talking to them face to face like this. And then the commander would walk up to me and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, they're up there, I can't hear." So to have the technology be able to, go live and be able to hear that and give updates, so then the commanders can make decisions, informed decisions on what to do next. And then on the other hand too, we get complaints sometimes about officers. And so then to be able to go back and watch video to either confirm or refute whatever that complaint was, it's been really nice.
Yeah.
AI is on the rise. How is AI potentially affecting investigations or crime occurring?
AI is new. I think we're seeing it more in everyone's daily lives. It can be a helpful tool at times, but with anything, criminals can utilize tools, everyday objects for their criminal purpose, and they unfortunately have a lot of time on their hands, so they're able to use AI to sometimes confuse and fraud people, creating fake accounts, fake phone calls for individuals. And so trying to overcome the aspect of AI being used in fraud and how to discern that. Creating fake videos, that's something that we see a little more frequently, and how to discern, again, that it's an AI generated piece of media.
Information that wasn't actually something that didn't actually happen. It was generated with that artificial intelligence. So,
Yeah.
again, stuff that's changing the landscape of crime and our daily lives.
What advice would you give people that want to avoid any fraud or anything like that?
I think if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. They're not giving out millions of dollars on a daily basis to people. So be a little skeptical in things that you read and see, and take the time to actually examine it and to question it. And don't be afraid to ask somebody else for either assistance or review. Oftentimes we see in investigations where fraud is occurring, they're using intimidation, they're using force, they're creating fear in the victims so that they don't want to reach out for help. They won't even reach out to help from their family members, from their children, from law enforcement. They think that they're in trouble, and that fear's been built up. So being unafraid to ask for help. And even if you've already given away some money, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't find shame in what had happened, and you're less likely to be victimized.
Most people today have social media accounts. How careful do people need to be with the information they put out in the world?
I think you want to be highly careful with what you're putting out in the world. If you're getting ready to go on vacation, you probably don't want to be posting that you're getting ready to go on vacation, or that your house is going to be empty for a week, or even that if you're already somewhere on vacation, maybe not posting those pictures while you're gone. Individuals can see that if you don't have your account locked down. Who that information gets shared with can be restricted, so you want to definitely look at who can see what you post, but being mindful of that information that's going out so that nobody knows where you're not home. Your private information, you don't want to give out a picture of your birth certificate. That could have information that is help somebody commit fraud against you. So really locking down what you post out there, lock down your friend group to a specific number of people, and validate who you're friends with. Maybe they're not actually who you think they are.
We get a lot of kids and the like that just, they get friend requests and they don't even check to see who it is. Hey, I got more followers, and so you just add him out there, and that could be dangerous.
Yeah, you definitely want to know who you're adding to your friends group, and parents want to be mindful of what applications they're letting their kids use. A lot of them are now have settings that will identify them as under 13 or children, so that limits who can actually talk to them on it. I think it's Snapchat and Instagram. There's some of those capabilities, and just being careful that you're not creating an opportunity for victimization.
So we've actually run operations in the past where we've had officers pose as underage kids to see if anybody tends to contact them, right?
Yeah, we've been part of those operations, and there are those individuals out in the community, in the area, that are looking for opportunities to victimize individuals. And so, again, preventing that as best as parents can or children can.
And made several arrests over the years over the operations. I remember one that I was involved in. They actually arrested, wasn't somebody from here, but a corrections deputy who showed up to meet an underage girl and had his gun under his seat at the time. So very scary. We also had a case where we had a juvenile who was trafficked all the way to Wisconsin, I think it was. And some technology helped in that case as well.
Yep, that one, our investigations worked in hand with the FBI and able to successfully rescue her. But yeah, we were able to utilize some vehicle information. I think Uber was part of some of the information that we were able to obtain and be able to track the movement of the suspect from the East Coast all the way into Washington and then traveling back across the country as well.
Yeah, actually, the flock cameras, automated license plate readers. Once we were able to get that information as a possible suspect in a vehicle, we actually caught the car coming to and going right back from Washington after he picked up this girl. And turned out that he was already a registered sex offender and ultimately got charged federally and got an indeterminate sentence, which means he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. So again, very successful investigation, but technology helped in it.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about you getting into being a detective. Tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a police officer.
So my journey actually started in 1991 when my dad became a police officer here with the Mount Vernon Police Department. And he spent around 18 years of his career with Mount Vernon Police Department. He was the DARE officer. He was the first high school resource officer. So that kind of started my understanding of law enforcement. And then I went to Skagit Valley College. Didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but knew that going to college and continuing my education was probably a good path. Spent some time at Gibson Guitars, and then realized that, and that was in Montana.
Okay.
So I spent my time in Montana, and then came back to the Valley and was able to get a job with the Skagit County Sheriff's Office as a corrections deputy.
So working in the jail?
Working in the jail. So I spent about a year and a half there, and learning how to talk to people. That was the biggest thing that I learned from at the jail. You're in with individuals that have been convicted of crimes, and unfortunately we don't have any weapons in those scenarios because you don't want a weapon in a jail. So learning how to talk to people was very key in that position. From there, walking around, small circles. The jail is a very small area, so I wanted to expand my circles. So I decided that moving to the roadside was a good option. So I tested with Mount Vernon Police Department, and was very fortunate to get hired on. And I've been here now for 18 plus years.
So you beat your dad?
So I beat my dad.
Nice.
Yep.
And you actually wear his badge today, right?
Yep. When he was getting ready to leave law enforcement, when I completed the academy, he gave me his badge and was part of the pinning ceremony at graduation from BLEA.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What other kind of specialty positions have you held here at the police department?
So after my first 5 years, I was a patrolman initially, like everybody starts at, and then I moved into our priority policing team position.
Another mouthful.
Another mouthful.
What did you do there?
So there I dealt with repetitive crimes, street crimes, nuisance residences, drug-related issues, and dealt with our criminal street organizations in Mount Vernon and in the Valley.
Okay. And then from there?
I was in PPT for about 3 years, and then moved over to investigations, and then I've been there for 10 years, 10 plus years.
You mentioned that you were part of the tactical team for a while. Any other ancillary duties that you've had throughout your career?
I was on the range staff, so one of our firearms instructors, and I spent about 10 years doing that. The last few years of range instructor was kind of ran the program and helped with purchasing and overall instruction at the department. And
technology's changed how we train use of force and range as well, right?
Yeah, technology, we're looking at potentially going with VR as part of our training tools. So getting additional opportunities for for our officers to get trigger time on the gun and to use de-escalation in those scenarios, to utilize the electronic control devices, the taser. And we also have moved on to red dots, so creating opportunities for officers to be better shooters with those red dots.
When you say red dot, that's a sighting system, right?
Yep, so moving away from the old iron sights and moving into it's basically a red dot on the top of our gun that we can help sight.
Probably pick up a sight picture quicker.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid we ever have to do that, but we want to be trained if we do. The VR is for training. So is that like the headset and there'll be scenarios that officers have to do?
Yes, we just tested it with the other day, and there are scenarios built in to the program, and there's a training firearm, a training taser. There's other tools that are built into the program. And yes, it's a headset that they wear, and audio, you can hear and see everything that's going on, and you can interact. It does utilize AI to hear what you're saying, and the scenario can react based off of that.
And somebody can put officers in many, many different scenarios. So if they ever find themselves in that scenario in real life, they've already had that experience. And the scenarios may or may not require the use of force to happen. It gives them a chance to do that, use those de-escalation skills like you talked about, so they can, like I said, de-escalate that. And it actually calls for no use of force if they're doing it right.
Yeah, building that Rolodex of training and experience and life experience. Each scenario, or each time we go out the road, we may face something the same or different. And having that opportunity to see something that was similar and then learning from any potential mistakes. And it's better to make a mistake in training than to make it in real life. And to build that Rolodex helps us out.
Absolutely. Technology's really changed and really helpful in a lot of ways in our jobs.
Yeah.
So the VR technology headsets are something that's coming. What are we using right now to do some of that training?
Right now, we've got a simulator that utilizes, it's a computer-based program. It projects video on a screen, and an operator can select, again, different types of scenarios for the trainee to use. It's a laser gun, basically, so it's a modified actual weapon, and it's swapped out for the internal parts to have a laser. And the trainee can go through different scenarios in that, and the operator listens to what's going on. It doesn't have AI, so the operator has to listen to what they're saying and evaluate if they're saying the right things, if they're giving the right commands, if they're providing the right information in that scenario, and then they can change how that goes. But that's an opportunity for, again, that Rolodex to be built. So that's what we're using right now.
Sure. And people can actually come in through our community academy. And that's one of the modules we let people do is go through that simulator, as well as see even more close and personal our technology. So folks, if they want to see that, can sign up for our community academy again next year.
Yeah, it's been pretty helpful for them to see that and to get an understanding of what type of training we go through as law enforcement here in Mount Vernon.
Wayne, appreciate you coming in today.
That concludes this episode of the Roll Call Room. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit subscribe and check out our Facebook and Instagram pages so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here in the Roll Call Room.